Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. We're your hosts, Quaviondre Williams.
And Daquon MUE.
So let's get into this week's conversation. What's hot on the table this week?
In an article on The Root written by Kendra Lee, we learned that to say Amanda Seales has not been feeling the love from most Black media over the past month isn't hyperbole. So it makes sense she would choose to do her first big post pile on tell all with a non journalist. If there's anybody who wears that description like a well made suit, it's former NFL star turned pundit Shannon Sharpe. But rolling out suggests Seales is likely rethinking that decision after Sharpe was problematic throughout the 3+ hour Nobody Cares About Black Women Club Shay Shay podcast episode. The ex athlete called his show Seales' safe space to say her piece, but safety left the building early in the first segment, where Seales revealed that she was recently diagnosed as having autism spectrum disorder, a diagnosis for something she has long suspected, she said, has helped her understand herself better. Sharp responded, quote, just because you have a special gift, that doesn't mean that you have a spectrum. So you feel just because your brain functions differently that that's what caused it, or there's a clinical diagnosis, end quote. Sharp was equally dismissive when Seales recounted a racist experience she had as a child dancer on a Christmas show at Walt Disney World, where hers was the only blackface. Seales said the other children bullied her, called her the N word, and implied she was an affirmative action hire. Quote, yeah, they're kids, end quote, Sharp said dismissively, before adding that children often repeat what they hear from their parents and their environment and, quote, don't know what they're saying is wrong, end quote. Then he asked Seales if she had been a model citizen as a child. The episode sparked immediate backlash. According to the Los Angeles Times, Sharp came under fire for their tense conversation. Now, with all of that being said, Andre, what are your thoughts on the situation?
While this interview was very obviously disrespectful, dismissive, and unprofessional in so many different ways, I have to say that I'm not very surprised given Shannon's track record, specifically when interviewing Black women. If we look back at the interview with Monique, where she showed Shannon Sharpe the video that she has of Tyler Perry admitting to purposefully spreading rumors in order to blackball her. Instead of just confirming what he saw and heard, he proceeded to deflect by saying that Monique isn't supposed to be recording people. So I'm not surprised that he would come with that same energy to Amanda Seales, but in this case, it was much worse. In the phrasing of Willem from RuPaul's Drag Race, his tone was very pointed during that interview. From the clips that have been circulating of the interview, you could tell that Shannon wasn't actively listening to what Amanda was saying, but was just waiting for a chance to challenge a point that she made. It was that classic case of, listening to respond instead of listening to understand. And this was very evident when Amanda talked about her experiences with racism as a child. Shannon almost immediately went on the defense of the children bullying her, but saying that they were just kids and probably just repeating what what they heard adults say. But he didn't have the same protective energy towards the child who had been bullied, who was sitting right across from him. And when Seales went on to discuss her account of a racist teacher who she called out when she was a kid, Sharpe went back on the defense of the teacher, stating that he could understand why the teacher would be upset at Amanda for calling her out because she was a child and he was taught that children need to stay in a child's place. And despite the fact that Amanda stated that she was calling out the teacher because what the teacher was saying was objectively wrong. But again, he wasn't listening to that part. All he heard was an opportunity to play devil's advocate, which we all know is just some people's way of covering up their disagreement with a certain topic or statement in the supposed interest of objectivity. Not every single situation or topic needs a devil's advocate because certain things are not up for debate. This wasn't a philosophical debate. They weren't at The View discussing politics. Amanda was recounting her personal experiences. And at every opportunity Shannon got to try to discredit her experience, he took it. Also, to even call this an interview is a bit of a stretch because interviewers take the time to prepare their questions for their guests. And it's clear that Shannon nor his team did that because he was hella confident when he said that Amanda's mom was white, to which Amanda quickly corrected by saying that her mother was not white. In response, Shannon not only brushed her off, but proceeded to argue and say, well, your mom is West Indian, so, and when Amanda had to correct him again, he jumped in once more to say, oh, well, she married a white man. And he was once again corrected by Amanda for a third time because that was not true either. Not only was he refusing to take accountability for having incorrect basic information about his guests, but the dismissive, argumentative responses he gave her was downright disrespectful. Like, sir, I know you're not about to argue about the race of your guest's mother right in front of her face. Honestly, the level of patience Seals exercised to continue the interview and not just walk the fuck out was next level. But the sad thing is, as a Black woman living in society, she probably knew that if she were to rightfully exit the interview after this bullshit, she would have been labeled as the angry Black woman yet again. But I want to hear from you, Daquon. What are your thoughts on the situation?
Whew, girl. I don't have many thoughts.
Not
because
many.
I just don't like to think about this situation. Because honestly, I think that this was a perfect example of, somebody trying to be something when they don't have the range. There's just certain conversations where you either need to come correct or not come at all.
Yeah.
And I think that this was very much it. Like, you were talking about things like race and all of this other stuff with Amanda Seales. Like, if you're going to challenge, if you're going to play devil's advocate, like, you need to come with your facts, you need to come with your figures, you need to come with your citations ready, and you need to be able to actually make a coherent argument and not just kind of be like, are you sure? Did that really happen? Well, they're just kids. Are you really that special? Are you really on the spectrum? Like, that was something that was very uncomfortable to watch. Like, honestly, I couldn't stomach the entire interview because after a while I was like, girl, this is not it. I think that there have been interesting episodes of the Club Shay Shay podcast, but those are also episodes where Shannon Sharpe is basically having locker room talk with somebody who he has a decent relationship with, or at the very least respects and shows that respect, versus an episode like this where, like you said, it was very clear that Sharpe and Sharpe's team didn't do the research. They did not do the required reading before the lecture, and unfortunately they failed. They did not deliver what was necessary. So overall, it was a situation that I think really needed a lot more time and attention. And I think that there were also these kind of underlayers to it of just this man dismissing this Black woman. And it's a conversation that we have all the time. I mean, even the episode title alludes to it. Nobody cares about Black women. And in the episode, you're showing that you don't care about this Black woman, to care about her feelings, to care about her experience and what she's telling you. All you care about is pushing back. All you care about is making that viral moment. All you care about is getting those sound bites. And overall, it didn't make for a good experience. But let me ask you, did you notice any undertones that might suggest a difference on why Shannon was so quick to push back on points made by Amanda Seales, but very hesitant with Cat Williams?
I think it's very clearly misogynoir, plain and simple. Throughout this interview, Shannon had a very condescending tone and attitude while speaking with Amanda Seales, so much so that it almost felt like he invited her on his show specifically in an effort to try and humble her in some way. And it wasn't just the fact that he kept interrupting her and disagreeing with her viewpoints. It was the fact that he went out of his way multiple times to try and, quote, school her on the situations she was bringing up. Not only that, but when the subject turned to race, Shannon kept trying to interject on Amanda's points as if they were peers on the topic at hand. Now, while Shannon Sharpe may know the lived experience of being a Black man in America, Amanda Seales has both the lived experience of being a Black woman in America as well as a master's degree in African American studies. She's not just a person who experiences race, she's a scholar who has studied race. And thankfully, Amanda swiftly checked him on that. But the fact that she had to defend her lived experiences with her education in order to get Shannon to step back is yet another indication that Shannon had no plans of letting Amanda Seales speak her piece from the get-go. If you go back and watch the Cat Williams interview with Shannon, there were times where Shannon would express, a little bit of shock and surprise at the statements that Cat was making. And even time or two, he would have disagreed a little bit. But the difference is, however, was his approach. For the most part, Shannon let Cat Williams speak his piece with almost no interruption, aside from prompting the next question and reacting to what was said. For Amanda, it was the complete opposite. She came into that space believing she was safe enough to be vulnerable and express her thoughts and opinions on the issues important to her and the things that she's gone through in her life. However, yet again, she was forced to fight for her voice to be heard in an interview that was supposed to be about her. Shannon didn't just drop the ball on this one because the ball was never in his hands to begin with. He didn't come to this interview with Amanda to be a safe space for her. He came in with preconceived notions of who she was as a person and used this interview as a way to attack her views and opinions. And the reason I think that this is the case goes back to those comments he made about her parents. The arguing back and forth with Amanda about race, or the race of her parents, because you and your team didn't bother to fact check your questions, was a clear sign that the point of this whole interview was to put Amanda on the spot and try to get a gotcha moment like you mentioned. Problem is, tactics like the one Shannon pulled on Amanda might have worked on others, but even if Amanda might have been momentarily caught off guard by the disrespect Shannon was displaying, she handled herself like a pro. But the fact remains, she should have never been put in that position in the first place. But Daquon, what do you think? I mean, why do you think that Shannon was so quick to push back on her points?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's giving massage noir. It's really giving that. And it's sad, but also hilarious that Shannon Sharpe thinks that he can school Amanda Seales, that he can debate. Like, Amanda Seales is debating people and political pundits literally all the time. Like you said, she has a whole degree in African American studies. And as somebody who has also studied AFAM, there's a lot of times when you can see where somebody understands their lived experience, but that kind of extra scholarly experience and study is very much missing. And I think that, Shannon Sharpe, being a black man in the NFL, I'm sure he has had his own experiences with racism, especially with the work that he's done. But also, I feel like if the tables were turned and he was in that situation and he was having to defend himself and having to defend, yes, this thing that I experienced was racism, he wouldn't have liked that too much. He would not have enjoyed it. And so for him to do that to Amanda Seales was very hard to watch. And I think that it gets to this bigger conversation that we have is just how often, especially in the Black community, we don't have unity because we don't respect each other. And
Mm-hmm.
it's especially
Mm-hmm.
when you see, especially for a lot of Black men putting down Black women, you know, using misogynoir to put down Black women, to humble them, to put them in their place so that they can have that status as the Black man and they can have that status as the smart one, the one who's on top, the one who knows what he's doing, yada, 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 whatever. And it's a sad situation, but it's also a real situation. It's an example of what happens in our communities every day.
Yeah.
So often we don't listen to Black women, even when they're talking about their very own experience. People are always so quick to be like, or there has to be some other explanation. Let's just think about all of the options. Maybe you're jumping the gun. Maybe you're being too
Have you
emotional.
considered all the points? Have you considered
Right.
all of the
Just
Yeah.
textbook misogynoir,
Yeah.
textbook gaslighting, and it's something that needs to stop. So I hope that this kind of conversation and all the backlash that has came from this quote unquote interview that can't really be called an interview. Hopefully that this does more work to un unpack this misogynoir that a lot of people hold towards Black women.
Yeah, I agree. In an article from BuzzFeed News written by Layla Muhammad, we learned that a clip from a recent JoJo Siwa interview sparked intense backlash online. As you might have seen, the clip sees JoJo speaking about her new wave of music. The young star recently underwent a total rebrand, with many suggesting she's in her bad girl era. Recalling presenting her new sound to her record label, the 20-year-old told Billboard, quote, I said, I want to start a new genre of music. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's called gay pop, end quote. Given how long gay pop has been a thing and the numerous queer and non-queer artists who invented it, several people were immediately furious at JoJo for insinuating that she'd invented the genre, taking to social media to brand her disrespectful and ignorant. Well, amid the growing backlash, JoJo was approached by TMZ and questioned about her comment. The TMZ reporter pointed out to JoJo that people were mainly criticizing her comment because she didn't acknowledge any of the gay pop icons that have come before her. JoJo then suggested that if you ask somebody to name a gay pop artist, they would reply, what's gay pop? However, the reporter hit back stating, quote, I think they would say Lady Gaga, Freddie Mercury, Elton John, end quote, to which JoJo agreed. Finally, when asked if she wanted to retract her statement, JoJo clarified that she believes she is definitely not the inventor of gay pop, but that she, quote, wants to be a piece in making it bigger than it already is by bringing more attention to it, end quote. So, Daquon, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on JoJo Siwa's original statement?
Girl, once again, this is an example of somebody trying to say something, trying to do
Mm-hmm.
something when they don't have the range. I
Mm-hmm.
think moral of this week's episode, know when you have the range and know when you don't. Because you can avoid situations like this. Like, it's not hard to name gay pop icons. It's not hard to name queer people who have revolutionized how we do music, how we do pop music. And it's kind of sad because these are people who really invented something new, actually invented something new. And you have JoJo just kind of being like, I don't care. I don't care enough to do my research. And it's one of these situations where I feel like JoJo is trying to do so much to break from her image, when in reality, I think it would be better if she took the time to slow down, to do her research, to maybe be a little bit more thoughtful with what she's doing in her rebrand, because it's coming off as too much. It's coming off as being inauthentic, and it happens to create a situation where we get these sound bites, we get these statements that very clearly shows that she just wants to say and do whatever it takes to make her look like she's something else, that she's not the girl wearing rainbow bows in her hair and dancing on some TV show or whatever. It's a situation that I think, like I said before, she needs to slow down. She needs to do her research. And I think it could have been so much more effective. I think she could have had such a bigger impact if she leaned into the references, if she named it like, yeah, there are these people who have been doing really important things in terms of gay pop, in terms of queer people in music, but I want to be able to amplify it even more. I want to be able to take things in a slightly different direction and then go in that direction. But what we're seeing now from the new JoJo is definitely a choice. She's made some choices in the direction that she's going in.
Uh-huh.
It's giving memeable. People are talking about it through memes. I mean, let's be honest, girl. Bop the Drag Queen has done so much for JoJo Siwa's. And the fact that, like, the song Karma, the original singer released it and outcharted Joe. It's she's going through a lot right now, and I feel for her, kind of. I can empathize with wanting to break free of a certain image and to do new things and to explore what you can do. But once again, that takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And when you try to make it happen too quickly, that's where you get like a Miley Cyrus situation, or a lot of these child stars who try to go to a more adult image, and they end up doing a lot of things, creating backlash, creating things that honestly hurt their career trajectory. They could
Mhm.
be much bigger than what they were. And a lot of times they end up going back to what they were originally doing, going back to their roots and really finding themselves there. So it's okay to explore, it's okay to find something different, but do it with class.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think it was a very out of touch thing for her to say. You know,
Mm-hmm.
gay pop has been around as long as pop has been around, and to confidently believe that you invented an entire genre of music takes a level of caucasity that comes as no surprise from a white woman in the music industry. JoJo is not the first, nor is she the last white woman who will claim ownership over something that has long since existed well before her time. But I think the reason why people were especially irritated with JoJo Siwa and why they were eating her up so heavily online is because this wasn't an isolated incident of her claiming to be the first at something. Around the same time as her claiming to have invented gay pop, she also claimed to be the first person from her generation to make this supposed extreme switch in her music, in that she's not afraid of being the first to do it, someone's got to do it thing. And people ate her up for that one because she essentially went from pink and glittery to black and glittery and calling herself a bad girl. But I think the main
and not even black and glittery. She's still doing the pink stuff.
She's still doing
and rainbows and
right.
white.
But I don't know. I think the main reason people are upset at her is because, a lot of what she's doing is coming across, like you said, as incredibly corny and disingenuous. Now, there is nothing wrong with being corny if that's your brand or who you are. But the fact that she's speaking as if she's this revolutionary musician that has changed the sound of music as we know it, it's just not it. She may be that girl in kids pop music, I'll give her that. But I think whoever helps manage her brand royally fucked up her media training and her transition into adult pop genre of music. But the backlash from her comments was so severe, like you said, Daquon, that people went out of their way to find the prior version. That shit is still gagged me. Not the original, what is it, the one before her, Britt Smith. Making,
and it's so good.
And it really is lit. I'm not even gonna lie. She ate her up with that one. She really did. But I think it all boils down to branding. I think that instead of focusing so hard on announcing this big switch, I think she should have handled things more subtly, like you were on the train of. Like, I agree that if your brand was primarily kid-friendly or kid-focused, that you should make it clear that your new projects are going to be more adult-centered. But again, there is, tact to this. She could have simply stated that she has moved out of her kid music era and now she, now that she's an adult, she'd like her brand, her content to mature with her. But Daquon, I want to ask you though, like, how do you feel about her response to the criticism that she got?
Girl, that response was trash. It was just like her original statement, it was a little tactless.
Yeah, lacked finesse. Yeah.
Lacked finesse. And I think that it was something that made you go, huh?
Girl, what?
Like, she backpedaled a little bit, but also saying that she wants to make things bigger and do all this stuff. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's just who I am as a person. Maybe it's the Capricorn. I don't know. But I think that when you are embarking on some kind of creative journey, it can be really helpful to move in silence. Not complete silence. Of course, like you said, she can talk about she's going in a new direction.
More mature, something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Mature. She wants to explore her sexuality a lot more. There are ways to talk about the projects that you're doing, but then let the project speak for itself.
Exactly.
Versus trying to put this kind of grand idea over it. Like, this is this big thing. It's something you've never heard before. Hyping yourself up. And if you don't have what it takes to back up all that you said, girl,
you're such a shady bitch. I cannot. Daquon, you shady.
I'm just saying, if you are saying you are inventing something that's never been done before, if you are saying that you are an icon, legend, never can be recreated, never can be done. You better be given icon status tracks.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is a situation where she kind of shot herself in the foot by being overzealous, by being overconfident, rather than just letting the chips fall where they lay, just putting out there, exploring yourself, exploring what you want to do creatively, and letting it resonate with the group of people first. And then you can push and, make things bigger and stuff like this. But I also want to speak specifically to her kind of saying that she wants to make gay pop bigger. And there's a part of it that really feels a little icky because I think a lot of times there are, people who don't, like we said before, don't do their research, but also kind of has an ownership over something that should not be owned. Like, sure, you're bringing it to
Mm-hmm,
more
mm-hmm.
people because you're a big artist or you have a large following. But I also think that in making it bigger, I want to see you making it bigger, not by you have this big following that you're bringing it here, but you are creating more opportunities for people, for queer people to be represented, creating more opportunities for queer dancers, for queer artists that other queer pop singers to collaborate on. But I think especially because we see this a lot with a lot of white artists where they'll create something or they'll say they're creating something, they say they're making something bigger, but they also don't do it in a way that's very intersectional, that really gets at all of the queer people of color who have really done a lot for pop music as a whole, but especially gay pop. And even in that conversation with the person in TMZ, yeah, we got, Lady Gaga and Elton John, but the fact that no person of color, no queer person of color was mentioned, it's a little scary. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that JoJo has the opportunity to do something great, to really change how queer people are viewed in the media and create more space for queer people. But I want to make sure that she's doing it in a way that makes space for more than just her.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think I just also want to start off by saying, that TMZ reporter, that TMZ interviewer had their foot in JoJo's neck with those
Girl,
back-to-back receipts, bitch. Like, whoever they were gathering her several times over. But what I think is so annoying about this exchange is that in spite of all the backlash she got, she still didn't do her research to learn why what she said angered so many people. She was still standing 10 toes down on this idea that no one knows what gay pop is or who a gay pop artist would be. She even went as far as to say that even if she didn't invent gay pop, she could be the CMO or something. And it's like, girl, take several scenes. Like the problem people are having with her has nothing to do with her wanting to make gay pop music. It's the fact that she is consistently pedestalizing herself in a genre that she's only just started making music in. Like, girl, aside from some singles and extended plays from your little kid friendly days, you haven't even released a full album yet, let alone a full adult album. But you think that you're qualified to be the CMO of gay pop music. Let's be real here. And it's clear that she's out of touch, but then again, there's speculation out there that all of this is a marketing ploy to distract from another controversy that she has going on. Word on the street is Miss JoJo's sweetheart image was in serious jeopardy, so her team had to make the switch in order to protect her brand image. According to an article written on her campus by Emma Burke, quote, JoJo and her mother, Jezelyn, were accused of creating a hostile work environment for their young employees. The accusations involving them also include allegedly unpaid work, missed school, berating the girls, and risking the physical health of the performers, end quote. The article goes on to say that, quote, there has been minimal response from Team Siwa other than a response from their lawyers saying that these claims were false. It is unclear if there will ever be an explanation from the Siwas or if the story would be left unaddressed by her dance company, end quote. Now, this is all alleged. And the case is still ongoing, but it does make for an interesting theory as to why Miss JoJo has been making so many crazy statements, especially since this whole rebrand happened right around the same time as these accusations came out. But, I digress. Even if this isn't some mastermind marketing strategy by JoJo Siwa and her team, it could simply be that JoJo has been touched by the spirit of J-Lo and has reached a level of delusion where she truly believes she's changing the game in ways no one has ever before. Or
The
maybe she
shade of it all.
or maybe she could just be, like Daquon suggested, an overconfident young adult that needs some humbling, like we all do from time to time. We've grown a little too big for our britches, so to speak. Regardless of which of these turns out to be the truth, I hope that this whole situation shows others that if you think that you've done or made something that no one has ever thought of or did before, do a Google search before making any claims that you invented it. But Daquan, what do you think the takeaway from this whole situation is?
I think that it's that, but also have good people on your team.
Bitch, say that again.
Because, girl, I don't know if JoJo has good people on her team. Like, I'm just saying, if I were breaking out into a new genre, if I was breaking out into a new image, I would want to make sure that I have people on my team who knows what they're doing, knows what I'm trying to do, understands my vision, but also understands, like, okay, here are the references, here's the required reading that you need to get into before you embark on this journey. But also just like, girl, like where's the PR training? Where's the people to just handle the statements? And also, where are your people who are going to say, you know what? I see what you're doing, but let's take some time to sit on that. Where are the people who are challenging you when you're saying you want to do this, this, and that? Because it takes a lot to rebrand yourself, to embark on a new creative journey. And when you're on that journey, you need somebody in your corner who's not only going to hype you up, but also give you a little reality check every now and then and let you know what's really tea.
Right.
In a study published by Johns Hopkins University, we learned that every few years a new generation joins the workforce, bringing with it its own set of qualities, traits, and values. For example, when searching for employment, baby boomers sought job security, Gen X sought work-life balance and professional progress, and now millennials and Generation Z seek everything from a company's ethics to a decent work-life balance. These distinctions have an influence on how employees interact and are managed. Generation Z, also called Gen Z, Zoomers, I generation, and post millennials, is the most diverse generation in history, responsible for shaping the workplace of the future. Gen Z are those who were born between the years of the late 1990s and the early 2010s and are starting their careers during a time of growing inflation, mounting student loan debt, a housing crisis, and an impending recession. In addition, they have faced catastrophic occurrences like war, social instability, and an increase in gun violence. On the whole, Gen Z has been dealt a difficult hand, and it's defining how they engage in work. Previous ways of working and interacting between employers and employees are being disrupted by Gen Z's entry into the workforce because of different expectations regarding atmosphere, culture, and support at work. Now, Andre, why do you think that Gen Z is having such an impact on the workforce?
I think it's because we are living in a world where people are waking up to the reality that the supposed American dream was never attainable for everyone. So many people in prior generations were sold the pipe dream that all you have to do is study, get a degree, get a job, and you'll be able to afford a nice house, a fancy car, the white picket fence, and so on and so forth. And for those with ample resources to pull from, those things were very achievable. But nowadays, in a society that is entering late stage capitalism, it's becoming very clear that the American dream for many is becoming more fantasy than reality, which is why Gen Z has been shaking things up so much because it's because they can see the writing on the wall. Companies are taking advantage of employees now more than ever before. They aren't paying people their worth. Others aren't even paying people a livable wage. And almost all of them are overworking their employees. Gen Z employees recognized this and came to the realization that these companies do not give a fuck about their well being. So they have been matching energy. They've seen their parents and grandparents get replaced without so much of as a bat of an eye when they've passed away. They've seen how the only reward for hard work is more hard work, maybe a pizza party and a dry ass email about how appreciative the company is for all they do. So Gen Z's response has been to take their sick days when they need to instead of pushing through the pain like so many previous generations before them did, because they know that if they drop dead today or tomorrow, the company will still run business as usual. They take their vacation days because they recognize that not taking those days benefits the company, not them. And they also recognize that they don't have to bite their tongue and grit through disrespect from management like prior generations who were taught to stick it through to the end. Gen Z will job hop and quiet quit until they find a place that values and respects them because they value their mental health above values of a heartless corporation. The reason that Gen Z is having this impact on the workforce is because many of them grew up watching their parents struggle and deal with so much bullshit from their jobs. They've seen the tears from parents who have dedicated their entire lives to jobs only to be laid off due to budget cuts. They've watched their parents tolerate disrespect from their bosses in hopes of a promotion that never came. They've watched their parents work themselves to the bone, and when they've fallen on hard times, that job did not lift a finger to help them or work with them in any way. This impact wasn't some sudden thing that came out of nowhere. It was a culmination of all the pain and heartache all the prior generations had dealt with that made Gen Z strong enough to stand up to these employers and say, not again, bitch. But Daquon, what do you think? Why do you think Gen Z is having such an impact on the workforce?
I think we really need to just look at the history and everything that Gen Z has gone through. I mean, all of Gen Z, for most of the life that they remembered, has been a post 9/11 world, a world in which there's so much more political unrest and so many more different security things when you're traveling, and all of these kind of performances of what this country should be and why you should care about and be a patriot because we're under attack, because we're a democracy and all this and that. They were told all of these things about the American dream and that they need to just work hard and they could do whatever they want. And they found out that that's lies. They were children during the '08 housing crisis, where a lot of times they couldn't have a stable home because their families had to move from place to place to place, meaning they had to go from school to school to school. They couldn't be around their friends. Their education suffered. We have to think Gen Z has been through the earlier days of police brutality, of Trayvon Martin, of Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, as well as everything that happened in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter movement, and even more attention on police brutality. Gen Z is a generation that had to literally have active shooter drills because school was not a safe place for them. They knew that at any waking moment, somebody could bring a gun into their school and shoot them all up. They had to endure a pandemic where they realized that not only did their government not care about them, but also their jobs did not care about them. They did not care to create a situation and handle the pandemic in a certain way. Companies were caring about their bottom line. They were
Mhm.
caring about making their money. They were caring about finding the quickest way back into the office so that they can micromanage. And so when you look at everything Gen Z has been through, not only to also mention for Gen Z, any election that we've been able to vote in has always been an election of our democracy is on the line.
Mhm.
So, have we ever known an era of peace? Have we ever known an era where we can't be stressed that all of these systems around us are literally failing and breaking down? And then it's put on us that we need to fix it, that we need to deal with all the problems, and that the people in power, they're not going to care because they're fine. And if they're not fine, they're not going to be long around long enough for them to really feel the impacts of what's happening. So it is a whirlwind for Gen Z living in this world that is both figuratively and literally on fire. And to now be getting into the workforce and understanding everything that they've been through, it makes sense that they're going to be like, if I'm going to take my time and my energy making money for this company, I want it to be a company that I can actually vibe with, that has the same ethics and values that I have. I want it to be a company where I can take vacation time, I can take time to myself to rest, and I don't have to stress myself out just doing this job because the world is already stressing me out enough. Gen Z wants to make sure that they are working at a place where they are valued for their time and they're also getting paid appropriately because inflation is on the rise. Everything is so expensive, and these jobs are not pushing wages in a way to keep up. And so, with all of that being said, it's a really sad situation, but it's also very empowering that a lot of people in our generation are pushing back, are really standing firm in our beliefs and what we believe in, and making it known that we're going to be heard. We're going to shake things up. We're going to make a change. But I also want to say, because I know that this gets thrown around a lot, there comes a lot from older generations saying the kids are being all right. Look at Gen Z. They're doing everything. They're going to make this world a better place. And while that may be true, the kids are not our way. The kids are struggling. The kids
Mhm.
are going through it. And I think that my problem with that statement is that a lot of times that just puts even more pressure on Gen Z to be fixing the problems that they didn't even create, fixing
Mhm.
problems that were well in place long before they were even born, long before they were even a thought in their parents' mind. And so I really encourage younger generations to not only look at Gen Z and being like, wow, they're doing things, they're changing it. Good job. Also, be on the lines with them, fight with them. It may not help out your generation in the same ways in the that it's helping Gen Z, but it's work that everyone needs to be doing.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I also think that there are several things that, companies could do to retain and attract Gen Z employees. Like in an article published on John Hopkins University titled Gen Z in the Workplace, How Companies Should Adapt, they detail key points that companies should start working to change. The first is the promotion of gender diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. We are living in a time where the access to information is only getting easier. So people are finally able to find the words to describe their identities and sexualities in the way that best suits them. We are also living in a time where people are more aware of the inequities in the workplace as far as who is getting paid what and who is or isn't being hired. And companies are not only going to have to start being more inclusive and respectful to people from all different gender identities and sexualities, but they are also going to have to do serious work in diversifying who they are hiring in their workplace, because a sea of white faces does not a diverse workplace make. Next, they are going to have to promote mental health awareness. The way the article describes it is, quote, employees of Generation Z want improved access to mental health services, enhanced knowledge of mental well-being, empathetic leadership, and a culture of wellness. Therefore, companies must establish stigma-free work cultures and integrate mental health across the business through policies and programs that care for people and respect their personal and professional wellness to achieve these interests, end quote. And another way that these companies are going to have to step up is through engaging and focusing on career and growth. Many Gen Z employees are looking for ways to elevate and grow. And if they see that a job has no upward mobility, they are liable to jump ship with a quickness because they see that this job is a dead end. And lastly, and this is sort of a 2-for-1, but it should come as no surprise that the main way to keep and attract your Gen Z employees is to pay them their worth, which is what you brought up too. This goes hand in hand with valuing your employees' contributions, right? So, like a pizza party, a plaque, or an email is not the only way to show your employees you value what they've contributed to your company. In order to get your employees to go above and beyond, you have to reward, above and beyond work with above and beyond salary increases. If you really want to continue growing your company and having your employees bring their A game all the time, more money is the way to go, in addition to respect, consideration, and recognition. Because the more you undervalue and underpay your employees, the less enthused they'll be to go the extra mile, and the more average their work becomes. Because how does that saying go, Dick? Oh, yes. You get what you pay for. But Daquon, what do you think? I mean, what are some of the things companies should be changing in order to retain and attract these Gen Z employees?
I want to echo a lot of what you said. I think that those are very important things that companies need to hear, you know, in terms of the most emphasis, value your employees. Value your employees. And we
Mhm,
can take this so many ways. We
mhm,
can talk about money.
mhm,
Value your employees, pay them what they're worth, pay them more than what they're worth,
mhm,
honestly, because a lot of times y'all are not paying enough.
mhm.
So make sure that these employees are well compensated to, not only to value the work that they're doing, but also realize what environment you're in. Because,
Yeah.
you know, I lived in New York City. There are so many places that act like they're not in New York City. They act like they are not in a place with super high rent, and the groceries cost your rent. There's just so much that you have to pay for in New York City. And so a lot of these jobs, especially jobs that require you to be in the city, you should be paying a livable wage for that city. In terms of also valuing your employees as the people that they are, that comes with DEI, and really being intentional with the work that you do with DEI. I think that a lot of times that there are companies that kind of create these kind of focus groups in terms of their DEI project, which really turns into employees doing extra work to make the company look good, to make the company be like, oh, we had this Black History Month event that these employees, on top of everything that they're already doing for the company, had to also plan with no additional wages, by the way. And all of these different things where it makes it to where the kind of HR and DEI programs within a company aren't actually resources to help people of color and minority people in these companies, but they are centers where they can get more work if they want to. And also in terms of valuing your employees, value their time.
Mm-hmm.
There is no reason to be spending super long hours and expecting that if I am contracted from 9 to 5, I should be working from 9 to 5. I should not have to do an 8 to 8 just to deal with what my normal work requirements are. Because if I need to be doing that much work, either pay me more and make value me that way, or hire more people to spread out the work so that there's more balance on the team. I think another thing a lot of companies need to do is really evaluate the people who are in the higher up positions, because that is really going to make or break an experience for someone. I say what is most important in a job is understanding who your managers are and what type of people they are, because that will either make you have the greatest experience ever or the worst job, make it be the worst job of your life. You know, one of the things that I loved the most about my last job was I had a great manager, a fantastic manager, a manager who valued my time, who didn't want to overwork me, who didn't want to overburden me, who listened to what I had to say, who wanted to know what is it that I want to get out of this position? What is it that I can handle right now? What's already on my plate? And so you need to be able to analyze the people who are in those management positions and even the execs, the CEOs, CMOs, all that. Because when we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about diversity on the entry level. We want to see diversity at the top as well. So those are all things that I think that companies need to start doing if they want to hire and retain Generation Z, as well as things like, let's make remote work a lot more feasible. Because
Right.
let's be real, there are so many jobs that you don't need to be in the office.
No,
You
you do
don't
not.
need to be spending an hour on the subway just to get to the office, to work all these hours, take another hour back home. It's so much. So if I can cut down on my commutes and make more time to do the work that I need to be doing, that would be lovely. So overall, value your employees, number one, and listen to what they want. Now, the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but sometimes the heat can get a little intense. Let's turn the temp down, take a breather, and get into this week's topic, cool down. So, Andre, for this week, I wanted to ask you, what are your favorite music albums of all time?
While I have a lot of albums that I would consider that I like, really, really enjoy, there is only one album that I would consider my favorite because it's the only album that I listen to in its entirety and love every single song on it. And I'm no this will come as no surprise to Daquon, but that album is Adele 19. And it has held a special place in my heart since the very first time I heard it in the fifth grade. Not only was it my first introduction to Adele and her music, but it was the album that helped me through one of the more difficult times in my life. I had a very emotionally abusive fifth grade teacher. I talked about this on the podcast before, who made me feel like I was nothing and meant nothing. I mean, she made me feel like I didn't matter for a long time. I didn't think I did either. And I'm still unlearning those horrible thought patterns that she instilled in me at such a young age that keep trying to tell me how worthless and unlovable I am. And the only light in that very dark tunnel at that time was the fact that every once in a while, during our reading time, she'd play Adele 19. And that music, the melodies, the ballads, it helped make that time a little more bearable. I mean, even though I wasn't old enough to fully appreciate and understand the music, I felt it. The sorrow in Adele's voice, when she sang certain songs connected to me deep in my soul and gave me a sense of calm in the storm that was my fifth grade year. Even now, when I re-listen to that album, in spite of the memories it brings up, it's an almost bittersweet feeling, because anytime that Adele played in that classroom, anytime I heard those songs, I knew I'd be safe for as long as those songs were playing. I knew that in those moments, I wasn't going to be torn down by my teacher or bullied by my peers who had been encouraged to do so by that teacher. Um, and maybe it's some form of, I don't know, classical conditioning, the whole Pavlov's dog experiment. But every time Adele 19 comes on, I feel at ease. I feel safe. And I feel like I'm able to let my guard down. That album, in some roundabout way, became my safe space. And after all these years, it still is. But I want to pass the question back to you, Daquon. What are some of your favorite music albums of all time? Not
Girl,
the
that
sigh.
is,
Not the deep sigh.
it's a deep sigh because if there's one thing about me, I love listening to music.
Mhm.
Music is so important to me as a person. Music is something, like you said, can really get you out in dark situations, can really evoke a lot of emotions. And so when I think of my favorite albums, I have three. They're not necessarily albums that I think are the best albums of all time, but they're my favorite for their own different reasons. The first
Mhm.
one is the self-titled album by Beyonce. It was the album that made me a fan of Beyonce. That was the first time that I truly listened to Beyonce as an artist.
Mhm.
I listened to the full album, and there's so many songs on that album that just really resonated with me and made me think a lot deeper about my life. It also came at a point where I was really exploring who I was in terms of both sexuality, and I think even though I didn't notice it back then, there was some also things with like gender and all of those different things that I was exploring who I was as a person. And that album allowed me to do so because it came at a point to where I really wanted to start listening to music and start enjoying things because that's what made me happy versus this is what a boy should be listening to or what a boy should be doing. It's I don't care about any of that anymore. I listen to these. I think that these are great songs and
Mhm.
they all really resonated with me in different ways. The second one of my three, which you're not going to be surprised, is another Beyonce album, but Lemonade, because
Mhm.
we don't talk about Lemonade enough. I talk about Lemonade a lot, but we don't talk about Lemonade enough. It is such a great album. It is an album that really made me in touch with my emotions. I think that Lemonade does such a great job of taking you through the journey of Beyonce's emotions, the different ones that she's feeling, and teaches you that it is okay to feel however you're feeling in a moment, that all of these emotions that we feel are a part of a bigger journey, are a part of something that is going to take you somewhere. And it's also a lot of these emotions can bring you to a certain place, but also you can make these emotions into something so powerful or so beautiful, and take whatever raw emotion you're feeling and put it into your art and your craft. I think that really changed the game for me as someone who's creative. And girl, I like to keep my emotions down. I like to not feel them. I like to repress them. But that really taught me, like, girl, feel your feelings. Like, give it,
Yeah.
if you need to put it through your artistry, put it through your artistry. But your emotions are valid.
Yeah.
And my last one, which is kind of cheating because we'll get, it's Homecoming, Beyonce's Coachella performance, the live album. Girl, that is an album that, well, first of all, it's so many of Beyonce's songs. It's literally so many, it's literally some of the highlights of Beyonce. It
Mm-hmm.
all packaged together in one album. But I think it also resonates with me a lot because it led me to a lot of scholarly work. Like, I have done so many essays on Homecoming because of that album, because of the Netflix documentary, because of the entire performance and what it meant. There was a lot in terms of, I was thinking a lot about what it means to hold a Black space or create a Black space. And, like, undoubtedly, Coachella is usually this very white or white centric space. And for Beyonce to take space for Blackness, to show Blackness in so many different facets. I loved it. I could talk about it for hours. I literally, there's a video out there of me teaching a lesson on Homecoming, and, like,
Mm-hmm.
girl, it's an album that did a lot for me as a scholar and really encouraged me in my scholarly journey to think about things a lot more publicly. Like, these are the things that people are grappling with every day. Of course, I love a good literature piece. I love something, this scholarly article in the Ivory Tower, but to really engage with what people are listening to and watching and viewing on a day-to-day basis, but also making your scholarship available to the everyday person and not keeping it locked up, as well as just reminding yourself that, like, yeah, you can be this great scholar, but you can still do work on things that are deemed quote unquote non-scholarly, because A, that's a lot of white supremacy talking,
Mm-hmm.
and B, it's a part of who you are as a person. And I think that who you are is very integral to your scholarship. So all three of those albums helped me in different ways on different parts of, like, my personal journey as well as my professional journey. And girl, I once again, I can talk about Beyonce literally all day.
It's okay. Me and Adele, the same way, Daquon. It's okay.
Right.
We
But Adele
now
19 is that girl. I
it
gotta
really is.
say.
It's a really, really good album. Um, now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. In an article on blackpast.org, we learn that the first African American to win an Olympic gold medal, John Baxter Taylor Jr., was born November 3rd, 1882, in Washington, D.C. He attended Central High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where he ran track and was the only African American on the team. After graduating from high school in 1902, Taylor attended the Moses Brown Preparatory School in Rhode Island for 1 year, running track for an undefeated team. In spring 1904, he joined the varsity track team. And in May 1904, at the Intercollegiate Association of Amateur Athletes of America, or the IC4A Championship, Taylor won the 440-yard run, breaking the intercollegiate record with a time of 49 and 1/5 seconds. In 1907, at the IC4A Championship, Taylor won the 440-yard race with a record of 48 and 4/5 seconds. In September, he won the 440-yard race at the Amateur Athletic Union AAU Championship. The following spring, despite a hernia, Taylor won his third quarter-mile championship and anchored the 1-mile relay. In July 1908, athletes gathered in London, UK for the fourth Olympiad, and John Taylor was the first African American to represent the United States in an international sports competition. Taylor competed in a controversial 400-meter relay final. British officials called the race before the four competitors crossed the finish line, asserting that one of the three Americans fouled the British runner. The Americans refused to run the race again, and the British runner took the gold. Later that day, Taylor competed in the 1,600-meter medley relay. The 1908 Olympiad, again held in London, was the first time athletes competed in this race that required different runners in the relay to run different lengths. Taylor ran the third or 400-meter leg. The American team won the race, and Taylor became the first African American to win a gold medal at the Olympic Games. On December 2nd, 1908, John Taylor, 26, died at home from typhoid pneumonia and was buried in Eden Cemetery in Philadelphia. He earned 45 cups and 70 medals during his brief track career.
Black people.
That's and to have died so soon, but to have accomplished so much. He left his mark.
Mm-hmm.
He left his mark.
Right.
Even though he left so soon, he left his mark.
I am not a sports girly, but when it comes to Black athletes, there's just something about them that's just so good.
Black magic. What is it? Black girl magic. Black people magic.
Mm-hmm. In an article written by Vanessa Burnett, we learned that when tattoo artist Jackie Gresham opened her New Orleans shop nearly 50 years ago, there were less than half a dozen female tattoo artists in the US and even fewer African American artists. Originally from Flint, Michigan, Gresham moved to New Orleans from Detroit in 1976 after losing her engineering job at General Motors, where she drew plans and layouts for automobile dealerships before switching careers. That shop, Art Accent Tattoos and Body Piercing in New Orleans, opened its doors in 1976 and is Louisiana's oldest tattoo business still in operation. It's also the first tattoo shop in the US to ever be opened and owned by an African American woman. Now 77 years old, Gresham has been tattooing for over 4 decades. Many consider her to be a pioneer of creating good art on Black skin. Her presence in the tattoo trade not only makes it more accessible to minority and female artists, but also to the African American community at large. Gresham not only broke into a male-dominated industry, but also a predominantly white one. When Gresham began her tattooing career, it was difficult for people of color to find artists who knew how to work on darker skin, and that was if shops allowed them in to begin with. A good tattoo, Gresham believes, can help to break down racial barriers while inspiring younger artists at the same time.
Come on, Black girl magic.
Period.
Black girl magic.
I am not a tattooed person. I do not, but I respect pioneer in tattoos because, girl, we've seen some terrible tattoos.
We have. My tattoo artist is a Black woman.
Period.
But like I said, that is another Black first too. Come on now. Mm-hmm. Come on now. And still in operation. Come on now. Bad bitch things. Now, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you're listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at the Melanin Margin for updates of new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at Daquon MUE
and at Andre Talks a Lot.
Now, we will see you all next time on the Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.